This is Jane Solis, and I'm part of our readiness technical technical staff. And today we're going to be doing a webinar on a little bit on creating courses, not much, but mostly on building course activities. And we'll be talking about understanding how your courses fit into the entire user journey using our platforms. You'll learn requirements for a course to be able to be available for training. You'll see activity options, and in addition to our labs, not just our labs, and we'll review various options that can be enabled on those course activities. Well, let's get started. So we have a user journey, and basically this is from beginning with creating labs all the way through delivering that training to your end users. And as you can see, we have the LOD side here of the platform, Lab on Demand, creating your lab to publishing your lab, and then the TMS side of the platforms, from creating a course to finding a delivery method to delivering that training to your users. So we're talking today about the first step in the TMS, which is to create a course. So let's go take a look. So the creating a course, I'm not going to spend much time on, but I do want to point out a couple of different things. For instance, we do have some required fields like inputting a name on the course. And your organization and program will be predetermined. You can change that organization to, and that is who manages the course or who has access to edit and manage the course. Training days is another required field. It always defaults to 5. What this actually controls is when you're creating a class, it'll have a default number of sessions that come in to the class, and this is where it comes from. It comes from the course training days. So you can change that to whatever you want in terms of sessions. You also have to have a content provider. And while this is a piece that is going away in the future, it is still used by our billing. And you probably only have one option here. So just go ahead and input it and make sure that you have it in there. Excuse me. There are a couple of things that are required for your course to be available to schedule. And 2 of those are right down here. You can choose to have it available to schedule for classes by choosing Available Instructor Led, and you can have it available to create course assignments by checking Available Self-Paced. These 2 functions, you can set a default on your organization profile preferences and choose whether or not every course you create has one or both of these checked. And if you do not have these checked, when you actually go finish your course, if you don't have it checked for Instructor Led and you go to look for it when you're on the course, when you're trying to schedule a class, it won't be there. Same thing for self-paced. The other piece that has to be in place in order for your class to be, in order to schedule the course, is under availability publishing groups. You have to add your publishing group. And normally for most of you, that's only going to, again, have one option in there, unless you're publishing content out to other organizations and selling that content to them. You'll only have one here. And it will, if this is not set, when you actually save the course, you'll get a message up here that says it's not in a publishing group. You can't schedule it for anything. So let me just say, you don't need to add a publishing group until you're ready to use it to schedule classes or course assignments or put it into a subscription. And I have 2 points of caution here. The first one is that once you have added a publishing group and you've either created a course assignment or you've scheduled a class and it started, you can't change the labs any longer. You can't add a lab activity and you cannot remove a lab activity. It is no longer available. So you may want to wait on scheduling or inputting your publishing group until you're ready for that to be used, for your course to be used. The other piece that is a big point of caution is that when you have these available instructor-led and available self-paced checked, they actually affect your activities. So let's say I add a video here, and you can see right now that available instructor-led and available self-paced are both checked because this activity would be available to classes and also to course assignments. And that is why that is there. But if I go out here to basic information, and let me tell you, I did this a few years back, and I was fooling around with a mock course, and I unchecked available instructor-led and then thought, oh, and I want to show you now, oh, available instructor-led is no longer an option here. So I went back in and I checked it again, and I thought everything was good. So I've removed it. I have activities in my course. I removed it, available instructor-led, or it could be available self-paced. And then I added it back in again. Now, when I go back to my activities, available instructor-led is there again, but it's unchecked. So what happened with me was all of the people that were taking that course no longer had access to any of the labs or other activities. So that was a bit of a surprise for me. So I want you to, and the reason I have actually spoken with our developers about this, and they said that if someone has removed it and then brought it back, then they believe that then they want to be able to choose which activities will be instructor-led versus not. But that's, yeah, I didn't quite agree with them, but that's where we are with that right now. So be aware that once you've scheduled and a class has started, or you've used a course for a course assignment, you can no longer change the labs. So you may want to wait on the publishing group, and removing that instructor-led or self-paced can affect any activities you already have in your course. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at each of the activities that we have. I'm going to look at sections at the end. So let's take a look at Scorm and adding a Scorm module. So what is Scorm? It's short for Shareable Content Object Reference Model. If you're anything like me, that name doesn't help you at all, but what it is and what it does, it's a way for, it's an addition onto content that allows a learning management system to read it. So what ends up happening is you develop content, and that might be a video, it might be multiple videos, it might be interactive learning modules or modules that you've put together. Then once you've created it, you can use a tool. I have Camtasia, so I use that. And instead of saving that as an MP4, I save it as Scorm. And then it is uploaded to the TMS. So from Site Admin, you'd come to Create Scorm Module. It'll open this page for you, and it waits for you to upload your files. So the Scorm has to be 1.2, and the zip file can't be over 1 gig. I'm going to close this. And then you can put in more things like an evaluation method. You can say whether the student completed it or if it was left incomplete. You can say if they passed or failed, and that can be determined by their last module or all the modules being completed. You can set the width and the height of the size of your content, your module. You can have it open in a new window. You can show table of contents. You can enable auto navigation, some different things. Once you've saved that, it's now available for you to use for a Scorm module. And some people ask questions about storage. We don't charge for storage on Scorm. And I want you to also notice here that, oh, I'll get there in a second. So we're going to add a Scorm module. I'll come in, I'll search. I'm just going to take the first one here. I can add multiple items if I choose all at once before I click OK. And on my Scorm module, the first thing I want you to notice is that it has available Instructor Led is here, but it is unchecked. And that is intentional because if you are creating a course that will be used both Instructor Led and self-paced, you may have videos for the self-paced learner, but you don't want the videos there for the students that are sitting there with an instructor who's going to explain all the pieces instead. So, but sometimes you like to have a nice video break or something to change up the instructor experience, the class experience. So it's still available to be chosen, but for Scorm, by default, it is not chosen. If you are using Scorm in a class, you can set it to have post-class access. Just like our labs are given 180 days post-class lab access, or it is changed, that's our normal, but some people change that to other things. You can determine how long after the class ends a student still, your class still has access to that Scorm content. So that's available for you. Some of the fields that are normal for each activity, one is duration. So if you know how long this Scorm module is, you can input how many minutes. I don't bother with seconds. You can also choose who it's available to. By default, it'll be available to everyone. And you can also make it available to instructors only. So then your students will never see it. So you can have things in here that are specific, activities that are specific to the instructor and not to the students at all. You can choose to have an activity required for course completion. And for course completion, that means that it is counted against the progress of completing a class or a course assignment. So maybe I have 10 activities in here and only 4 of them are required for course completion. I may have finished 7 of them with 1 of them being required for course completion and 6 of them being not required. It'll only show me 25% completed on the class, even though I'm more than halfway through all the activities. So that is how that comes into play. And then available instructor-led or available self-paced will make this course content show for instructor-led for a class and for a self-paced for a course assignment or a subscription assignment. So those are the normal everyday, requirements or settings that are available here. Okay. The next one we're going to look at is labs, and this is a lab that you have created in Lab on Demand, and then have actually published it out to the TMS, or the Training Management System. Labs you created are available for you to add to the courses. If you've contracted to have access to content created by another organization, you don't have access to use those labs to create courses. They're going to create their own courses for you, and you'll have access to them. There are some content providers that will work with organizations to create specific courses for them and contract that with them. So if you're interested in that, you can contact that content provider. So let's add a lab or 2. Like I said before, you can add multiple items at the same time. And the order that you add them in, if I choose select visible, it's going to add all of these labs, and it's going to add them in the order that they're shown in here. But if I go in and I add a lab, like my first lab as Joel, and then add automatic course creation, it's going to put those activities in the order that I chose them. So this will show first, my first lab, and automatic course creation will show second. So you can control which way the activities show, and you can move them around, and we'll see that later. So with a lab, the duration is set in Lab on Demand, and it comes over to the activity in the course on its own. a new setting here. We have required availability, we have course completion, instructor led, self-paced, is allow retakes. So this started being used when we started having exams through labs on in the TMS as activities, and whether or not a person could retake a lab became an issue because there were people that didn't want their students to take a lab a second time, take an exam a second time. So you can uncheck allow retakes. And I think I know there are also settings for this in LOD that can control whether or not they can retake things. You'll also notice that we have available instructor led, and with available instructor led, I have this ability to assign to students manually. This is only available if it is available for a classroom and it's available to everyone. So it disappears if it is not available to everyone and available instructor led. When I check this, then this lab would not show to any of the students until it is assigned to them specifically in the class. So let's take a look at that. And I have, right here, I have 3 activities in this class, and both over here on the side, view activity access is showing as a link, and that's because in this course, both of these are set to assign manually. And the video is not. The video is available to everyone. Let's take a quick look at my lovely student. If we look at my student, all she sees is the video. Okay. So when I click on the view activity access for the first one, I don't have no students are assigned to it. And I'm going to edit the access and add students. And you can see here that it is filtering out just for the students that are enrolled in the class, and I have access to add them. I'm going to add the bottom 3 actually, and say OK, and save it. I can also come back in here and edit the students I've added. It shows me who they are, and then I can edit by clicking on edit. I can add more students, or I can remove students that are in here already. I'll save again. And let's go down to the bottom and add the other 2 students for the sample assessment. And add students. And I'm going to do Aaron and Aiden there and click OK and save them. Okay, so how did that change for my student? This is student Jane, and now she has the assessment for sample colors, but she does not have the other sample assessment that is available to the other 2 students. So she can take that and use the assessment because it has been assigned to her. If it is not assigned, they do not see it at all. That is activity assignment. Let's go on. We have we have 3 different external link items. One is add video, one is add document, and the other is add external link. Let's take a look at them. You can see name, URL, description, and then the settings down here. And each one of these has the same thing available to them. The only thing that's different between them is the icon that's showing. So we're only going to talk about video at the moment. So when you add a video, so these are just links that go out to another site, and the only difference was the icons. When I go to add a video or any of the others, I'm going to put in a name. I'll be original and say video. And then I'm going to need to put in a URL. So I'm going to go out to YouTube and pick up one of our videos that are out here. And I'm going to copy the video URL. And when I come back in here, it's going to give me the URL. And unless I set this to be embedded, it will have to be set to open in a new window. This is a new setting that's down here, or else it will not work. And the way you set it to be embedded is you say, type in embed in between the YouTube and the ID at the end. And at that point, you don't have to have it open in a new window. It will open within the window that is already open. And again, you can put in your duration, course completion, and open a new window is the only thing that is a new option for you there. Now, another item that we can do is add an assessment. And an assessment allows you to evaluate your learners' knowledge and their comprehension on a topic and how much they've learned since reviewing any of the information in the class or the course. So these assessments are created in the TMS, and they are multiple choice questions with either one correct answer or multiple correct answers. When you actually create an assessment, you're going to only have like one field that's available to you. And none of these are showing, none of these links are showing. So you'll come in and you'll put in the name of the assessment and you'll save it. And after you save it, you get the ability to design, delete search. Well, I think search is always there. You get the ability to design it. And once you have the design link, you can open it and start adding questions. And as you add a question, you have the choice between the single or multiple answer. You put in the text of the question. And we have two additional pieces in here. And you put in the answers to the questions or potential answers. And then you can also add a URL link out to a website for more information for that student so that they can go and learn more about the subject in case they are interested. And we also have a field for an answer explanation. So if you allow them to review the assessment, they'll be able to come back and say, and you'll give them a reason why that answer was the correct answer. So here you can see, based on what I've created, that these three bolded answers are the correct ones. I can review and see what the explanation for the answer is, and I can click out here to go to the website and view which website it is and get more information. So you can review everything that you've added to the student. As a student, we're going to go back to our assessment we added here. And you can see that when a student has taken an assessment, they can see what the score is. They can choose to retake it or review it because those options are set on the course. We'll see in just a second. And if they do review it, they can see the bold and green underlined are correct. They have access to that website. They can see the answer reasoning because on the review. They can see which answers are incorrect because they're not bold and they're underlined in red. And so they have the ability then to go back and take a look at that. So let's look at adding that on the course and add an assessment. Yeah, I have to. Oh, heavens to Betsy. Okay, there we go. Because I could add multiple, I couldn't just double click on it. So again, you have the same settings that we've looked at before, and the allow retakes, like we saw in the lab, is here. And you can choose whether or not the student can retake that assessment, and allow review is a new one for you that hasn't been there before. So we can choose whether or not we want them to be able to review the answers afterwards. Okay, we're getting down to the last couple ones here. Lti Tools, our Learning Tools Interoperability is what it stands for. And it lets you add an activity that is coming from another website with a secure connection. In order to add Lti Activities, you have to first set up an Lti Provider. And when you do this, you'll be given, from that site, you'll be given a key and a secret, and you'll add them in here in order to set that provider. Once you've done that, you can set up a resource link. So for the specific activity you want, and you'll have to add that provider, the one that is already created that we just looked at, and then you'll have to have a URL that you'll add into the activity. So once you have set up your LTI, you can come in and add your resource link into the course. And this gives the end user a seamless access to that resource. It doesn't look to them like they've gone out to another site. It just opens and launches right from their page. And the last piece that we're going to take a look at is the Add Microsoft Learn activity. And these were provided by Microsoft, and anybody can use them to enhance the learning that they have going on in their labs, in their courses. And this is just an example. It pulls you out to the site, the Microsoft site, and gives them activities that they can add and objectives and things they have to finish. So you can add that to enhance your courses. And you just click on Microsoft Learn Activity, and then you can choose whichever items that you want and click OK. So now, moving activities around. Let's take a look at that. There are a few ways you can move activities around. One of my favorite ways is just to change the number. So if I put the video and I change it to number 2 and hit enter, it has now jumped up to number 2. Another way that you can move things around, we're going to move the video again, is you can move up and down using these arrows over here on the side. And you can remove activities using the X. So I can move it down and it moves, it switches places for you. And I can move it up if I want, obviously. Then the last way, let's actually add a section first. So sections allow you to put categories or add different, it adds a heading into the into the list of activities. So it allows you to give some structure to what's going on and for your students. So if I'm going to, I'll just put additional resources here. Okay, and I can add, you can see I have the same list of links here as I do below. If I'm using the list below, it's going to add activities outside of the section. If I'm using the list within, I'm going to add activities within the section. So if I come out here and I do the Microsoft thing again and add learning content, it'll add it directly in there. And you can still see it has a box around it in addition to that box for the activity. Now, if I do want to move some things, like perhaps I want all of those Microsoft Learn as additional resources. I'm going to click on this little thing that looks like a bullet list. And when I do, I get options. And this is the only way you can move something into a section that is outside of a section. So I can click on Move Here or Cancel, and that's within the additional resources section. But I can also use it to move to other spots within the activities. So it is a little bit helpful to be able to see exactly where you're putting it at times. So I'll move here, and I can also move them out of the section by selecting the same little link and saying Move Here. So that is how you can move those activities around and remove them and have those settings. So that is everything I wanted to cover for today. And let us go back to our PowerPoint. Hit my little slideshow. So if you're interested in learning more about our course activities, we have documentation for you at lods.one/courses and activities. That'll take you to a whole page of different lab activities, course activities, and how to use them. We'd love it if you join us for another webinar and check out the demo archive that we have there. And you can get to that to register at lods.one/feature demos. And we have launch Q2 coming up, and that is a free 2-day event for lab developers, operations managers, and business decision makers. And we'd love for you to attend. So we have content for everybody. So you can register for that at lods.one/launch. So I totally appreciate you guys being here and listening to how to add course activities. And if you have any questions, you can add them in the question box at the bottom. Or if you have finished, I want to thank you for having joined us.